Well, good morning, everybody. I am Manila Chan. That over there is Ted Rawl, and we are quite the sad streaming show pair. With me being sick as a dog, Ted over there losing a fight in the bathroom.
Don't do this at home.
Don't do what Ted did in the bathroom. Ted, do you not? Are you lacking floor mats? I'm just asking. Just
so I know the floor mat was not the issue.
Oh.
I just went down like the World Trade Center, It was like suddenly I found out that I was made from cheap union construction, and I just went down like a ton of bricks.
Oh boy, that's so crazy. Well, as you can see, you are tuned in to the Ted Manila Information Show. TMI for short. We bring you way too much information. Sometimes it's about our own stuff. So it's a little too much information. But it's also news, politics, lifestyle, culture stuff, foreign policy. That's going to be the focus today, actually. So anything and everything goes, because we believe you can never have too much information. So if you're looking for that straight-laced, button-down, morning news program, this is not for you. If you're looking for I don't even know if I could classify them as Trump-hating, crazy lunatic spewing stuff. It would be like Morning Joe. We're not that either. But we do drop some F-bombs. So this is maybe not safe for work. You might want to turn the volume down. It is all the stuff that you want to hear about, some other stuff that you didn't know that you needed to know. And then, of course, we'll laugh along the way. Although for me, I'm going to refrain from laughing because the laughing causes the phlegm to come up. That's probably TMI, right?
Hot.
The phlegm is going to come up. I know. Stop it. We are live Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So please be sure to like and follow the show. If you are on YouTube, please just hit that subscribe button. It is free. Hit the like, the follow, all that stuff to help us grow this little channel. We are almost monetized. We've been at this just a little over a month now, and we are almost there. So we can pretty soon start actually making a living doing this. If you guys help us by helping us grow the community by just simply following. If you are on Rumble, we would appreciate it if you are in the position to go on the .com, go in the chat, and if you see that subscribe button at the bottom of the chat, that's where you become a $5 a month subscriber to help keep this show alive and help support the program if you find value in what we're doing. So today, we are going to be talking about, the main topic is Turkey and NATO and Ukraine, obviously, and Trump's return to power. Because as it turns out, I don't know if you realize this, Ted, Trump and Erdogan saw each other face to face around 9 times.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something different. Like every time they saw each other, it was like, it feels like the first time.
Maybe it's like romance, but it was like 9 times. And with Biden, no face-to-face meetings at all, no bilateral meetings. It was minister level. So it was kind of icy, which is interesting. So we're going to talk about that with a foreign policy expert in Turkey, in Ankara, in just a little bit. So with that, Ted, shall we get into the headlines?
Good morning, TMIers. A judge yesterday has dismissed the charges against Trump related to the January 6th riots after special counsel Jack Smith threw in the towel, with the president-elect bashing the case as solely political hijacking. Presiding U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan of Washington, D.C., granted Smith's motion filed earlier in the day, seeking to dismiss the charges based on Trump's victory in the presidential election and the precedent against indicting a sitting U.S. president. We could get all into that. I think it's an interesting topic. Smith's team also separately moved Monday to end its appeal of a Florida judge's decision nixing Smith's classified documents case against Trump. That's the one with all the boxes in the bathroom and on the stage in the concert hall at Mar-a-Lago.
But everybody puts their files in the bathroom, Ted.
No, that's true.
I want to make that clear.
Yeah, well,
Pretty normal.
Clovis keeps his in the litter box, so that's in the bathroom. Once considered one of the strongest in a slew of legal indictments against the Republican. These cases, like all of the other cases I have been forced to go through, are empty and lawless and never should have been brought. Trump vented on Truth Social. Over $100 million of taxpayer dollars has been wasted in the Democrat Party's fight against their political opponent, comma, me. I love that. That grammatical construction is so awesome. Nothing like that has ever happened in our country before. Chutkan noted in her swift decision that when a prosecutor moves to dismiss an indictment without prejudice, there's a strong presumption in favor of that course. Smith's team, in moving to dismiss the charges it brought against Trump for alleged 2020 election subversion efforts on January 6, 2020, wrote in court papers on Monday, it has long been the position of the Department of Justice that the U.S. Constitution forbids the federal indictment and subsequent criminal prosecution of a sitting president. The department's position is that the Constitution requires that this case be dismissed before the defendant is inaugurated, the document said. This outcome is not based on the merits or strength of the case against the defendant. Manila, I have to say, I've never understood this. I've already talked about the lawfare against Trump. I thought it was a bad idea. It obviously hurt the Democrats in the election. So I'm not getting into the merits of that. But, you and I were we were taught that no man or woman is above the law, including the president of the United States. The Department of Justice issued a memo a few decades ago where they said we just should never indict a sitting president. But Manila, there's nothing in the Constitution that says that the president of the United States is immune from prosecution. This is just sort of a policy that the DOJ just came up with, and it's been honored, but it's lawless and baseless.
Yeah, I agree with that part, but as applied to Donald Trump, I think this is it's just bullshit. They just didn't like the way he handled it when they asked him for the paperwork back. That was first and foremost.
That's true.
Because Joe Biden was guilty of the same crime, if it were a crime, except that Joe Biden was politer about it and was like, oh, yeah, let me clean out my glove box of my classic Corvette. Oh, shoot. Hunter's, crack is all over this stuff. Hold on. Let me dust this off and give it back to you, DOJ. So there's a difference there, number one. Number two, this was clearly just a case of lawfare because they knew that he was going to come back fast and furious for 2024 and that they were trying to scuttle any chance that he was going to win. I think the polling that none of us see, that that I don't know if people realize this, Ted, that there are internal polls that are not released by the campaigns.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly those are
there's
good.
A lot more polls like that. Yeah, those are stronger polls.
Those are much stronger polls and more scientific and more reliable. And the public never sees them, but the campaigns know, and the government knows. The government does their own polling too, so they know who to expect. It's kind of a weather vane, right?
Wait. Why would the government do polling of political campaigns?
Because they like to know who's coming in. That I've never seen it, but I've heard that there's always government polling by, I don't know if it's by the GAO or something like that.
Isn't that like a waste of taxpayer money? I mean,
is it any more wasteful than giving DEI dollars for, trans documentary movie makers in Brazil? Like, it's
fair point, but it just seems I don't see the legal basis for it. No, okay.
No, I think it's because they kind of like to know which way the wind is blowing, and then they probably give it to the campaigns as well. But there's all these. My point is, there's all these polls that the public never ever sees, including the press. No one ever sees them. They're like super secret for some reason. So they always know who is actually gonna win. So they've known for a long time that there was a real possibility that Donald Trump was coming back. Now, that said, the fact that Jack Smith requested this be dropped without prejudice is the part that kind of makes me go, Because if it was with prejudice and the judge ruled it that way and said, okay, case is dismissed with prejudice, then they can't bring this back.
That's right.
But that's not what
without
happened.
prejudice means it can come back when Trump ceases to be president, for example, or really any time. I mean, look, I want to be really clear on this because I know there's people who will hear this and say, Ted's on team lawfare. I'm not. I think this was a terrible idea. And if there was going to be a legal attack against Trump, it should have only been January 6th only. That's it. And there should have, all this other stuff was garbage. That said, I just don't think, I don't know. I mean, it's just sort of like, I'm so literal. There are rules to the system, and this DOJ policy is not in conformity with the rules of the American constitutional system. That's all I'm saying. By the way, the same thing was used to justify not prosecuting Bill Clinton, too. So it's Democrats have benefited from it as well. Biden has benefited from it as well. But I just don't, and I'm not saying necessarily we should be, suing sitting presidents. It just seems to me like, we have this policy. Okay, well, whatever. I have a policy that, Clovis should be on the $5 bill. I don't know. It's like, who cares about this policy? It's not the law.
Well, maybe one day they will make a law for it. But as of now, I think the idea behind that is that, it makes the U.S., because we like to go around purporting to be this shining, beacon of democracy on the hill, and we're not a banana republic, and we don't prosecute our presidents, our leaders. Well, you know what? In the 2020s, Ted, that's all out the fucking window. It just is. We've got George Santos over there coming out as a drag queen, second persona, whatever he is, using funds for Botox and porn, and then you've got like people with perhaps kitty sex trafficking that might be in the cabinet. Just all kinds. The 2020s are just crazy. So that's all out the window. This whole veneer of we're not a banana republic, dead. Come on, get out of here.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Vaping has immediate negative impacts on the body's circulation, warned the authors of a new study, even when there's no nicotine in the cigarette. Despite commonly held beliefs that vaping is safer than traditional smoking, researchers have found that vaping had a significant effect on blood vessels and might also decrease how much oxygen the lungs take in. The vascular system is made up of the vessels that carry blood and lymph fluid around the body. E-cigarettes, also known as vapes, contain significantly fewer chemicals and toxins that are found in tobacco smoke. As a result, many people believe they are less harmful than cigarette smoking. Vapes also come in a wide range of different flavors, making them popular among young people. But the new research, which will be presented at a meeting of the Radiological Society of North America in Chicago next week, is the latest to suggest that they do have a negative impact on your health. E-cigarettes have long been marketed as a safer alternative, said study lead author Dr. Marianne Nabu of the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences at Little Rock. Some people believe that e-cigarettes don't contain any of the harmful products like free radicals found in regular tobacco cigarettes because no combustion is involved. While vaping exposes users to fewer toxic chemicals than cigarettes, Nabu says it's still detrimental to vascular function and overall health. I think you might be muted. There you are.
Yeah, I was just saying, okay, I think that's a no duh. Like I honestly though, it's a pick your poison in my case. Like I was a long time smoker. I wasn't a heavy smoker, like cigarette smoker, but I was definitely like a smoker, beyond casual, but not heavy, if that makes any sense to people. Like it started out in high school when I was studying for SATs, and like someone's like, you should have a cigarette. And I found out, holy cow, nicotine was like this holy grail for me to chill the fuck out, because I was super type A, and I was just, imagine that, me, Ted, type A. But it had a better effect on me than pot, for example. So pot was not, I was not into. I did do it when I was younger. Everybody did, but I was a bad pothead, right? So cigarettes were like the thing for me. And I would say half a pack into adulthood, half a pack a day. is about what I smoked, which isn't terrible, right? But I had to drop it immediately when I found out I was pregnant. Obviously, what a buzzkill. Um, but
Literally.
but then, you know, like helping me to get away from that, after I was still like really anxious and still wanted, like after I was done nursing and all of that, I turned to vapes for a little while and it worked. I don't even like cigarettes anymore. I don't like the smell. And we're talking over 20 whatever years of smoking at that point. It made me turn on the smell of cigarettes. It made me dislike the smoke. I used to, before, Ted, even when I was pregnant, if I walked by someone smoking a cigarette, I'd go, oh, that's the good stuff. Oh, there's nothing I would want more than a coffee in my hand and a cigarette.
I hate that smell so much.
I used to love it. And you know what? The vapes helped me. So I imagine if somebody didn't abuse, there are people that abuse anything. It could be anything. It could be soda, right? Like you can get diabetes because somebody drinks Mountain Dew all day. The problem is it's the amount of how much you use it. And for me, you know, I've always been somebody to moderate.
Soda and vapes you should not use at all.
I agree.
Soda's bad for you.
I agree with that.
Vapes are bad for you.
I agree 100%. They're less bad, I would say, than cigarettes, and they were a great stepping stone to help get away.
That's how they were marketed. I do think it's very telling that all of the major vaping companies are owned by big tobacco companies now.
No, now, well, not Juul. I don't know. Some of the ones, the earlier ones, but now it's such a huge business, Ted. There's so many. The problem is big tobacco is trying to bully those little vape companies out of business because they are a threat to their market, obviously. So they can't do a buyout on them. Big tobacco, you know, besides owning our food industry, wants to buy out all of those little vape companies as well, these little startups, because there are no laws, hardly any laws around the vaping industry yet, because it's still relatively new. It's like 10 years old, you know?
That's true.
So there's just not a lot of laws around it. It's still the wild, wild west. And what, like,
it's so America.
Dianne Feinstein
like
as an example, Ted.
It's so America. It's like AI. You release something and then you figure out how to regulate it after you release it.
Yes. But that's because I always use Dianne Feinstein, you know, the late California senator that's been there forever, died in her seat. Even though she was a dinosaur, you have dinosaurs like her sitting on like the technology committee, right? To like deal with Section 230 and like how to regulate Facebook.
Dianne Feinstein was a major TikTok influencer. Oh wait, no, not really.
Oh, it's because I'm a dinosaur too, and I don't use TikTok, you know. So but like maybe she was, I don't know. But that's the funny thing is like you had people when she was grilling Mark Zuckerberg, you know, the couple of times that he was on the Hill for giving testimony, she asked like these most basic, like softball questions to Zuckerberg because she just didn't even understand Facebook. So you have lawmakers like that trying to regulate new stuff like this, like vapes. Like it's not going to work.
Vaping's not really that high tech. I mean,
no, but there's a lot of chemicals involved, and when
it's the difference between frying a steak and like steaming broccoli. That's really the difference. You know, you're using hot steam to cook up the tobacco or whatever.
Nicotine. It's just
nicotine.
Liquid nicotine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yeah,
there are nicotine-free ones. Yeah.
There are. There's just like flavored ones or whatever. I was in it at the time for the nicotine.
Well, of course, because it's a highly addictive substance.
The nicotine was always my drug of choice since.
Well, you and a billion other humans around the planet. All right, let's move on here. Ryan, we talked about this yesterday. We're following up. Ryan Kobayashi, father of a Hawaiian woman who's missing in LA, died over the weekend by suicide. That, according to the county coroner's office. Kobayashi's body was found early Sunday morning near LAX. The 58-year-old had flown to LA earlier this month to help in the search for his missing daughter, 30-year-old Hana Kobayashi. The LAPD told ABC News that Ryan Kobayashi's body was found Sunday at about 4 o'clock in the morning at 6151 West Century Boulevard. That's a business near LAX. On Monday, the LA County Medical Examiner issued its finding listing the manner of death as suicide and the cause as multiple blunt force traumatic injuries, indicating that he was found in a parking lot. A GoFundMe has been established to help Kobayashi's fiancée. A note on the page from his niece reads in part, he's been living his absolute worst nightmare since Hannah's disappearance. And now with his passing, our family is grappling with unimaginable grief. Ryan's love for his family was boundless, and he would do anything to protect and care for his daughters. Okay, I'm going to be mean, except not kill yourself, which you probably would be in a better position to protect your daughters. But obviously he was really depressed. I'm going to, you have to read between the lines here on these suicide stories because they sort of journalistic standard practice is to not want to encourage copycats and all that. But I'm guessing he jumped off a parking deck and and bounced around, and that's how he died.
I don't know if he bounced around so much as went splat, but I don't, to me, it just sounds really weird. Like I feel, it sounds too fishy to me. It sounds like there's foul play here. I don't have any evidence for it other than...
That address is a Homewood Suites. It's a Hilton hotel at LAX.
Yeah. Off Century Boulevard. I know where that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like there's something fishy involved. I don't know. I mean, there's cameras everywhere. How does this girl go missing? How does dad just jump off? If it's at a Homewood Suites, how does dad just jump off like a parking garage at the hotel or the balcony? And people don't see these things. I don't know. It just sounds very fishy to me, Ted, but it's very sad.
Well, it definitely, as they say, raises more questions than it answers.
Yeah.
All right. 2 inmates in solitary confinement, I love this story, have revealed the exceedingly unusual way they got pregnant without even meeting. Daisy Link, 29 years old, gave birth to a baby girl on June 19th while serving time at the Turner Guilford Knight Correctional Center in West Miami-Dade, Florida. She was behind bars for about 2 years at that point, serving time without bond for allegedly murdering her boyfriend. The pregnancy confounded Link's family, who suggested she was sexually assaulted and demanded an internal investigation. But now it's been revealed that the baby's dad is another inmate, Joan DePaz, who was also accused of murder. The two had never met.
Johan
had never met face to face. And when asked if they had ever even touched, DePaz told the press, wait for it, never, like the Virgin Mary. Instead, the couple explained, DePaz passed his semen through the air conditioning vents in their cells. You would knock on it and you could hear the people from the different floors, Link said, who would stand on the toilet and actually be able to talk to them. Through the vents, the 2 inmates began the most romantic of all possible romantic relationships, passing notes and photos back and forth. Being in isolation for so long, you begin to spend hours and hours talking to this person, to the point where it's almost like you're in the same room as them, Link explained. Eventually, DePaz shared his dream of sometime having a baby. I'm not going to get to do that for a really long time, he said he remembers telling Link. So if I had to choose somebody, it would be you. Aww. And she was like, yeah, we could do that. The couple then devised a plan in which DePaz would pass his semen to Link using a chain of bedding. I put the semen in saran wrap every day, like 5 times a day, for a month straight, DePaz recounted. He would kind of roll it up almost like a cigarette, and he would attach it to the line that we had in the vent, and I was pulling it through, Link added. From there, I had it placed inside, the yeast infection applicators. I had placed it inside of there, and then from there, I administered it. She said it only took a few times before she became pregnant, and when she found out she was with child, she said she was very excited and ecstatic. Dr. Fernando Ackerman, medical director of Fertility Center of Miami, told local news the chances of their plan resulting in a successful pregnancy is slim, but not impossible. We estimate that probably their chances were less than 5%, but that's not to say the chances were zero, he said. So this is absolutely a case that is exceedingly unusual, not to mention yucky. To my knowledge, I've never heard or read anything like this. Link and DePaz are now in separate jails, but still talk on the phone and see their daughter, who is now living with DePaz's mother, on video visits. So sweet.
So many questions, Ted. Just so many. Like the Virgin Mary, huh?
Just like the Virgin Mary.
Wow. Okay. Well, okay, a couple of questions here. Like, okay, I guess this is.
I mean, can you imagine Virgin Mary? Florida. By the way, Joseph comes home and she's like, so Joe, I got something to say. So, hey, I know I never put out for you. I know, but I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. God. And it's like, oh, what do you mean you're pregnant? I mean, how could that be? Well, God fucked me. And so but without breaking my hymen. So I'm still a virgin, but so I'm having God's kid. It's so that makes sense.
This is just, just like the Virgin Mary, this murderer, Daisy Link, and this other murderer, Johann DePaz, look at them. They look like ideal parents, don't they?
They do. Mm-hmm.
But let me ask you, Ted, do you think two murderers, because they're murderers, does that mean automatically that they're not going to be good parents and they shouldn't procreate?
Well, I mean, Joe Biden is a parent and he's a mass murderer. But he's a pretty terrible parent. So that's a good point. I think you
be a good parent and be a murderer?
Well, of course. First of all, it depends on the circumstances of the murder, right? But 100%, yeah. Why couldn't you be? Yeah. I mean, there's lots of people who are not murderers who are terrible parents. So
true.
I don't think there's any relationship whatsoever. You can be. I mean, you're not. Look, I know in our system and in Western society and really Eastern society, we are judged by the absolute worst action we've ever committed. In this case, murder. But I don't think that's an accurate way to assess someone's worth as a person. I think you do one thing that's really awful doesn't mean that you're completely irredeemable for the rest of your life. Look, are these two people, do they seem to be turds? Yes. But we don't know that. They might not be turds. Look at the Menendez brothers.
This is in the context of Florida.
Right.
So it's a different game.
Lower bar is what you're saying?
I want to point out, Florida man,
woman.
That's right. Florida man, Florida woman. This encapsulates the Florida vibe here.
This reminds me a little bit of The World According to Garp, where basically the character who is played by Glenn Close, who is who's the lead character's mom, basically decides to get pregnant as a single mom. And she's a nurse in a infirmary treating war wounded. And apparently there's someone who has some sort of condition where he always has an erection. So she hops on and, makes sure she gets pregnant herself.
Well, I mean, I don't know how these two
lovers.
They're not, I mean, are they lovers? They've never even touched in person.
Of course they're lovers.
I guess. Okay. They're like pen pal lovers, I guess, but
they're vent pals.
Dude, they're vent pals.
It's like it gives a whole new meaning. So what were you up to? I was venting to my girlfriend last night.
That's true. Last thing we'll say, last thing, Ted, I don't know if their methods have been tried and tested scientifically elsewhere, but if it somehow worked for them, this can really stand to upend the entire surrogacy and all the
could be a new model.
Pregnancy, totally new model.
Meet you at the air duct.
Go through a vent, saran wrap 5 times a day.
Yep.
So
I mean, in all seriousness, these are two very fecund people. I mean, they're very, very, very fertile.
Apparently, I mean, I've heard of people becoming impregnated, from turkey basters and
Oh
through
yeah,
used condoms, but this is innovative. That's all I'll say.
innovative is the right word. And one more story before we get to our guest. Gen Z's all about getting the job done. Fast tracking it up the corporate ladder is now just a few clicks away, per new data, which finds that 82% of youngish hotshots lean on AI to do their work. 88% of them say that the use of advanced technology helps them overcome task paralysis. It's an affliction similar to the social media viral functional freeze phenomena that flares up when workday duties become too demanding. That's called laziness. The future of work is here, and it's AI powered. Yuli Kwan Kim, VP of Product at Google Workspace, says, rising leaders, I love that phrase, are not only advocating for AI, continued Kim, they're deploying the tech in meaningful ways, from improving communication with colleagues to freeing up time for strategic work. Like Kamala Harris, so many words, so little to say. And the Z's are nothing if not a generation that appreciates high-wired hacks for doing less and minimizing stress. Be it tapping ChatGPT to renegotiate their salaries or ditching traditional resumes to land employment via Hire Me TikToks, newcomers to the workforce are constantly coming up with new ways to make 9-to-5 life easier. The study, a November report conducted by and for Google Workspace, found that the resourceful fledglings of Generation Z, those are young adults under the age of 27, are leveraging AI to tackle simple tasks like drafting emails from scratch and jotting down notes during meetings. Researchers polled over 1,000 young leaders, big business newbies between the ages of 22 and 39, to find that both Gen Zs and millennials, those are people under 42, regularly utilize AI while on the clock. 93% of young leaders, what the fuck is a young leader, who identify as Gen Z, and 79% who identify as millennials use 2 or more tools on a weekly basis. But their dependence on digital assistance isn't just about taking the easy way out. The data shows how AI can help scale business-critical soft skills, such as the ability to collaborate with others, communicate effectively, lead a team, and more, said the study authors. I mean, I'm torn about this. I mean, on the one hand, it feels like cheating to me. On the other hand, using Photoshop to color cartoons felt like cheating at a certain point. But, new tech comes along. You use word processing instead of a typewriter. Use a typewriter instead of handwriting. You use handwriting instead of a stylus. It's just tech marches on.
Yes, and I'll keep this short and sweet too, because I'm somewhat of a tech phobe. I want to get to our guest because we have a lot of questions for him. But I'm a little bit of a tech phobe, and I like living in my quasi 1980s analog life as much as I can. And I feel like if you rely on tech too much, like, for example, I don't remember phone numbers anymore because my phone keeps everybody's phone number, or emails are predictive, right? When you start typing the email, I think it weakens our brains and it teaches us to be lazy. And I think that's a problem for the upcoming generation, where they're I don't know what, it's not short-term memory. I forget what it's called, but there's a certain type of memory category it is, that their brain, that section of their brain no longer serves a purpose because they don't utilize it, because they, and now you're going to rely on ChatGPT to do everything for you, including negotiating job contracts. That is a life skill. If you don't do that yourself, that is going to make for a very sad and weak generation of people that will, unfortunately, when we look into stuff like foreign policy, is going to make weak negotiators all around. Can you imagine the foreign policy leaders of 40 years from now, Ted, like people like my son's age that are at that point, they've relied on ChatGPT to negotiate for them their whole lives. And let's say, I don't know, they're ambassadors. They're going to ChatGPT each other in the same room to like negotiate, world peace, or to walk us away from World War IV, maybe at that point. I don't know. So I think at some point, I agree with Elon Musk that I think AI is getting a little too dangerous, and I think it's actually bad for us as a species.
Yeah, no, I always think about that. Like, like I love using oh my God, GPS to drive places. But
Sure.
but you lose something when you don't know how to read a map and you don't have an understanding of where you're going.
Or remembering how to get there on your own.
Shall we bring in our guest?
Yeah, let's hop to that. Let's see. Our guest is waiting. We see you, Professor. We're going to introduce you right now. Please stand by.
By dint of geography, history, culture, and human evolution, Turkey is one of the most influential nations in the world, and certainly that's the case throughout Asia. The trade and cultural gateway between Europe and Asia, Turkey has recently taken a light authoritarian and nationalist turn under the presidency of Reyup Erdogan, who's been serving as president over the last decade. As Donald Trump prepares to return to the American presidency, there's been speculation that Erdogan's natural stylistic affinity to Trump might draw him closer to the United States, as Turkey, like all countries between great powers, balances the US and its European allies against Russia, and perhaps even plays them against each other. On the other hand, Russia has gained the upper hand in Ukraine, and Trump seems to want to end the Russo-Ukrainian War. Then there's the country's complicated relationship with Europe. It's been a member of NATO since 1995, but its application to join the EU has stalled since Erdogan became president. Dr. Hasan Ünal, professor at Bishkent University in Ankara, has published extensively on Turkish foreign policy related matters. He's a history graduate of Istanbul University. He did his MA at the Department of History at Hacettepe University in Ankara before he set off to do his PhD at Manchester University in the UK between 86 and 93 on political and diplomatic history. And he's published extensively on Turkish foreign policy matters. He's a frequent current affairs commentator on Turkey and the wider region, and often writes op-eds for the international media, including the Financial Times, Die Zeit, and the Spectator, and others. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us.
That's my pleasure.
Hello, Professor. Good to see you. So much to talk about in this wild election year. We just saw recently Recep Erdogan winning his election as well. So he retains power there. And obviously with Donald Trump's return to power, I would like to first open by asking you about that. What are your broad thoughts on the relations between Trump and Erdogan versus Erdogan with Biden? Because as we've seen, Erdogan had a lot of face-to-face meetings with Trump. And under Biden, it has only been at the ministerial level. Why do you think that is? There were no bilateral meetings like he had with Trump.
Well, down here, basically, Biden is seen someone who is extremely Turkophobe at any rate. Throughout his political career, he was together with the Greek lobby in the United States. He's on record saying on numerous occasions that it would be his happiest time to see the Turkish troops out of Cyprus, bag and baggage. And the first thing when he took office a few months after was that he used the word genocide for the events of 1915 on the 24th of April statements that each and every American president makes. He's the first American president to use that taboo word in Turkish-American relations. It's one of the things which actually keeps Turkey and the United States at bay. And but for the emergence of multipolarity, presumably Turkish-American relations would have been would have been much more strained than what it is. So broadly speaking, one can say that under a Trump administration, the Turkish-American relations could not be as bad as it was, if you like. But, there isn't much how much basically you would come up with expectations about this and the other, but there are certain issues that keep the two countries at bay.
Yeah, Ted, should I go on?
Go ahead.
Okay. And Professor, so we have recently heard President Erdogan making comments that I think are perplexing to the West, especially the NATO allies, given that Joe Biden, and I don't know how you read this, Joe Biden permitting Ukraine to use American ATACMS to strike inside Russia, and President Erdogan made comments that the West has not yet, or even NATO allies have not yet known how to respond, where the comments seem that he expresses sympathy. I would say that's my best characterization of President Erdogan's comments, is he expressed sympathy over the Russians changing their nuclear doctrine and doing what they have to do to protect themselves. And a lot of NATO watchers are saying, oh, well, the Turkish are turning on their NATO allies, blah, blah, blah. Do you think that's an accurate assessment, or do you think President Erdogan is being fair in assessing the situation, that President Putin is doing what he needs to do to put Russia first?
Well, I think it would be better to place it into some sort of a perspective, to understand Turkish policy regarding Ukraine war in particular. Basically, Turkey wasn't terribly enthusiastic about NATO expansion to Eastern European countries from day one. And as things basically progressed, and the Russians began to show their teeth, from 2007, Turkey was more concerned about what might happen between NATO and Russia. And the Turkish position gradually developed in such a way as it is today. That is, this is not our war. So there is no NATO involvement no official NATO involvement in Ukraine, because there is no NATO policy adopted by NATO Council. Countries like Turkey would have actually vetoed if anything as such was brought to the NATO Council and to NATO platforms for discussion. So Turkey's position is that this war could have been prevented, indeed should have been prevented. And, Ukraine would have remained a buffer zone between, speaking strategically, between Russia and the Western world, NATO. And Ukraine's constitution, there could have been an article to be inserted into Ukraine's constitution, making it imperative for Ukraine to remain neutral. And that would have basically resolved all the problems between NATO and Russia. And as the war broke out, from day one onwards, Turkish position has been that Turkey would not get involved into the war in any actual way. And it is the only country which has kept its lines of communications with Kiev, but at the same time continued with Moscow, and Turkish-Russian economic relations, trade relations, and also political consultation over regional matters have been working well. So the two countries are making money. The two countries are also consulting each other over important matters region-wide. And so basically the overall Turkish policy is that, okay, I'm a NATO member, but this doesn't mean that I would have to join in every policy line that the Western countries take up with regard to either Russia or in the next phase against China or somebody else, because we didn't basically join NATO to do all these things. Okay, so NATO is supposedly a defensive alliance. And what actually gives Turkey courage to do all this is that we contribute to NATO more than we consume from NATO in terms of intelligence, in terms of security, in terms of whatever. You are talking about the second biggest army within NATO after the United States. So we don't need NATO umbrella so much. And the Turks and the Russians seem to get along, quite well, no problem. So why should we basically join in anti-Russian sanctions? Why should we close off our airspace to Russian civil aviation as the other countries have done? So if you, when we basically place what President Erdogan said lately about the Russian position on the change of the nuclear doctrine, then you would understand it much better. I mean, I call it juggling in a sense. Turkey is a juggler, if you like, okay? It is playing with lots of balls at the same time. I was at the Valdai Discussion Club's annual forum a few weeks back in Sochi, and there were also some participants. One really struck me, the Vietnamese academic or a research person in a think tank, and he was describing his country in a similar way. I approached him and said, this is what Turkey is about, and I call it juggling, and he liked the argument. So there is going to be quite a number of countries doing, exactly that.
Professor, Turkey's kind of unique as a state that is sort of between, it's at a crossroads, right? And typically states that are in a crossroads are weak, like Afghanistan or the Korean Peninsula, where there are long traditional invasion routes. They're between great powers. Turkey is not weak, as you pointed out. It's a very strong and extremely influential country. And so whose pan-Turkism is a massive influence in Central Asia. I mean, I remember getting on buses in Uzbekistan and seeing people have the Turkish flag on it. So how does is that what is allowing Turkey to resist the pressure from the West to join us and be on our side only? Don't talk to the Russians. Stop allowing flights to go through Istanbul. Is it that power that's allowing them to hold firm and say, no, we're going to do it our way. We're going to get along with the Russians. And I wanted to get your take on that, and also talk a little bit about the Gaza, Lebanon, Israel situation. President Erdogan, Turkey traditionally used to have pretty warm relations with Israel, relatively. And now, obviously, things are frosty. And can you just sort of talk about how we got to this point?
Well, as you said, starting with the Israeli question about the point regarding Israel, yes, after more than a decade-long war of words between Erdogan and the Israeli leaders, particularly with Netanyahu, the two made up finally. And they even shook hands just before the 7th of October attack by Hamas on Israel. I remember the two shaking hands in New York together at what the Turkish side calls the Turkish house there. And then I also remember from my readings of the press, Erdogan actually invited him over to Turkey, and he accepted the invitation and said that he would come round. And the Israeli president had been to Turkey earlier on, and the relations were, the situation between the two countries was warming up. But, all that was lost. It has been lost by now because of what Israel has committed in Gaza, which is obviously, to all intents and purposes, a clear genocide. But despite all, at some stage, I think Turkey and Israel will have to make up again, one way or the other, how that is going to be. How is that going to happen? I don't know, because it's not easy to predict these days. There's one dimension which is about the indictment by the International Criminal Court of Netanyahu and Gallant, and the other dimension is about Israeli-Hezbollah fight, in which Israel seems to be losing out quite, how shall I say, extensively, because although Israel has committed a genocide and has done whatever it wanted to the civilian population in Gaza, when it comes to what it can do to Hezbollah, it hasn't been that successful, though it has been, bombing the civilian places and all that, but Hezbollah is also responding quite successfully. And what all that is going to lead to is anyone's guess, if you like. So we'll have to wait and see on that. And presumably a Trump administration, and if Netanyahu goes in the meantime, would bring about some sort of a new era in Turkish-Israeli relations, perhaps. On the other question of how Turkey can actually resist Western pressure, well, the country has become quite resilient in the sense, for instance, although it has been a member of NATO since 1952, it has faced sanctions and arms embargo by its Western partners since 1974. And Turkey has learned to deal with American sanctions and American pressure one way or the other to get around the American pressure in particular. But now, these days, with the emergence of multipolarity, if you like, and Turkey feels presumably more at ease in dealing with NATO on the one hand, the United States and the European Union, and dealing with countries like Russia, China, and others across Eurasia. The Turkish states, the Turkic states, the Uzbeks and Kazakhs, and particularly the Azerbaijanis, are obviously an important point, but not to the point of pan-Turkism, because pan-Turkism normally has a label in the sense that it is something sponsored by the West against the regional countries like Russia, China, and Iran. And Turkey over the years, and the Turks across the region, have learned not to do that. In other words, okay, you basically increase solidarity between yourself, and you also there would be also flourishing economic and trade relations. The cultural relations are developing already, but you don't do it. You don't do it in the form of pan-Turkism sponsored by the West against the regional countries. In other words, not to basically damage Russia, China, and or Iran, anybody else, but all of them feeling Turkish one way or the other. they can basically make joint efforts when and if necessary. Particularly Turkey and Azerbaijan have become almost one body.
And Professor, can I ask you about this idea of Turkey perhaps joining BRICS? As we talk about multipolarity, and this really is, I would say, this is what the future looks like. And that's part of why the United States, especially under Joe Biden, has been desperately trying to cling on to this unipolar hegemony. But that was 20th century. 21st century seems to be multipolarity. And Turkey is flirting with BRICS. I don't know if that's something that'll happen. They've been desiring to be EU for many, many decades. That hasn't happened. Do you see Turkey moving in one direction over the other in the next few years?
Well, I do see Turkey in BRICS, for instance, in the years to come. I think unless something, absolutely unexpected happens and things, turn upside down across the region or across the world, it seems that Turkey is destined to join BRICS. But from the Turkish point of view, BRICS is not a platform against the West. Yes, all the countries, the key players in BRICS are frustrated with unipolarity and the Western way of dealing with things, like rules-based order in which there is no rules, there's no international law, there's nothing but apart from arbitrary decision making here over this and the other. And basically all the countries are getting together to counterbalance the Western influence, particularly the United States. There's no question about that. But at the same time, it's a platform in which countries do, they increase their trade. They also increase their consultation with each other over regional matters. And also, BRICS has set up a development bank out of which all the members can actually benefit one way or the other. So, and my prediction is that in the years ahead, if Trump makes some all of his, or at least a considerable part of his views into official American policies, we are going to be seeing the multipolarity getting more and more established in every sense in the world. And at that stage, and particularly with the change of the European governments, there's a strong prospect for that in Germany and all that. I mean, look at what has happened, what the latest elections for presidency in Romania produced. And, someone who did not present any party basically came out first, and he's absolutely against Western dominance in the way it is. So with the change of some of the key or some of the governments in some of the key countries of Europe, I would even see those countries, particularly countries like Italy, even France and others, also going over and knocking on the doors of BRICS and saying, can we also come in? And, because there is enormous, how shall I say, resources in the hands of the BRICS countries, and to self-isolation by European countries wouldn't do in their interest, wouldn't do anything in their interest. And in that sense, I would see that even happening. But if the Western world remains united in their opposition to BRICS and what have you, it would turn into a platform that would certainly try to counterbalance Western influence. And the other thing is, the multipolarity has always been a main feature of world history. I mean, look at the last 500 years of world history. It's always been multipolar. I mean, you would have a stronger country among the great powers of Europe, but not one that basically imposes its will on the rest of the other countries. There is no period of such. And the only period which was exceptional was the bipolar world order. And that was because it came after the Second World War, after incredible loss of human lives and material losses and all that. Plus, there was also an ideological dimension to that. There has never been unipolarity. Even during the bipolar world order, you have at least two superpowers, and then other countries rallying around the superpowers, but also with the inclusion of communist China from 1950s onwards, and the Sino-Russian dispute and all that, and the non-allied movement and all that, it was again one way or the other multipolar. So the United States and the collective West thought that they could actually impose a unipolar world order that is now cracking up.
Yeah. So it sounds like more throughout world history, there has been a baseline case to say that it has always been multipolar, except for this second half of the 20th century. So
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Professor. You always bring so much information and shed so much light. I always enjoy speaking with you. Dr. Hassan Ünal is a professor at Bishkent University in Ankara. He has published extensively on Turkish foreign policy related matters, and he has a long history of academia, and now we find out you were also at Valdai. So it's a lot of big brains at Valdai. So thank you so much for being with us, Professor. Good to see you.
Very nice to see you. Thank you for all that.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Same to you.
Bye-bye, Professor.
Bye-bye.
So you like that, right, Ted? Whenever we talk to brainy people like that.
No, it's so fun and so interesting. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. I hope other people like it too.
I hope, yeah, I enjoy that because there's just this wealth of knowledge in these people, and if you're watching mainstream media, you never hear people like this, like actual, like the eggheads, right? Like that you would otherwise tease, like, oh, nerd, so
yeah,
smart.
like why is that guy not in the Situation Room, or guys like him? When there's a foreign policy crisis, they just aren't.
No, you get these morons that, that if you're looking at commentators on Fox or on MSNBC or whatever, you don't get guys like that. You get like faker morons, like, oh my God, what's his face that like faked that he was like an intelligence, oh my gosh. John Kiriakou had a great story about him. But anyway, you get like fakers and frauds on MSNBC that like fake their background or whatever and don't know anything about anything, but they like fake it till they make it, and then they get some MSNBC contract. But you don't get, real people with real bona fides like that, that do this for a living. Like, why don't you have a Professor Mearsheimer in the Real Situation Room in Washington, D.C. Or
that's my question.
We don't have that. They're not on mainstream media, Ted. Where's Mearsheimer appear? Glenn Greenwald's streaming show on Rumble.
Right.
So, that's why you get professors like this. So I would love to have more professors. So any professors out there, if you're watching, hit us up. Yeah,
you can always email us at tmishowquestion@yahoo.com. And don't forget our advice thing. If you want to any kind of answer about anything from us, we already did one of these shows, record an audio clip with your question, send us a file attachment to that email address. It's on the screen right now, tmishowquestion@yahoo.com.
And then next Friday, we'll do this. So you guys have some time to enjoy the holidays if you're in the US. And I'm going to say elsewhere too, because I was part of the American expat class that took Thanksgiving with us abroad. So I'm going to claim it, Ted. I took Thanksgiving to the Middle East.
You're the one.
I made it a thing. I'm just saying.
I think, as you know, I think Thanksgiving should be haram.
It's haram. No, I was, this is 2008. This is almost 20 years ago, and It's now kind of a thing. People celebrate it now. My friends in Dubai tell me like it is now a thing. They actually celebrate Thanksgiving there.
God, that's
It's not like a
sad.
national holiday.
That's sad.
But people, it's to celebrate
What's
and get
the world
together.
coming to?
Oh my God, Ted.
You're like that episode of Star Trek where someone landing party accidentally left a book about Hitler behind, and then the whole planet turns Nazi afterwards.
Oh my God. That was me. I brought Thanksgiving to the Middle East. I'm just saying, to the Gulf countries. I can't say the entire Middle East, to the Gulf countries. All right. Ted and I are off the rest of this week, mostly because Ted's traveling, incidentally, while he's trying to heal up. Show us your arm.
Here it is.
Ah, there it is.
Rawr.
And I'm trying to get better. Hopefully.
Hopefully I can draw.
I hope. Well, you'll be traveling. So,
I'm very happy. No cast.
That's
just
good.
the brace. He says the sports doctor says that I can draw.
Okay.
So, no.
Like small, so you can. Yeah, but you don't have the finesse in your wrist to draw.
Well, no, but I mean, it's like you sort of do one of these things.
Okay. Well, Ted and I are off the rest of the week for one reason or another. We will be back on Monday.
Rested and ready.
I hope so. Like, I hope this.
Hopefully my lip won't be as fucked up. Here, I'm going to terrify everyone. Here it comes. Look at it. Here
no.
you go.
Oh, wait, warning. I'm not looking. No. This is why
YouTube's probably going to take this down because it scared the children.
I'm an Asian failure, Ted, and couldn't be a doctor. This is why. Human stuff is gross. Nope.
Yeah, people are yucky.
Nope.
I love that part in The Matrix where the agent is like, "You are sticky and you have so many oils and scents."
Yes. No.
And
I don't want it.
Right.
No. Not interested. I don't want to see the weird hole, the new orifice you just made in your face. No, thank you. No, thank you.
I didn't even show you the tip of my tongue that I bit off.
Oh, no. Yeah. No, not for me. I can't even do people like ear piercing. Like, I can't watch people get ear piercings or like get a shot.
Can watch that. No, I had an operation where they let me watch it on. It was on my back. They removed a lipoma, and I got to watch it on closed circuit. It was awesome. So into it. I went with a friend. She had her navel pierced.
Nope.
Amazing experience.
Nope. I can't. I turn away. Nose pierced. No. Nope. Not for me.
Just one request from me, Ted. Don't be finding love in the vent over the holiday weekend. Don't do it.
Oh my God. That's the weirdest story. I hated that the professor came in, by the way.
Oh my God.
On that story, I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's Muslim. I'm like, he might not be devout, I mean, Turkey's a secular country, but I was like, oh man, what if he's a devout Muslim?
I was like, oh no. It's just like, he's coming in.
He's probably he's like, America is degenerate. And he's right.
Right. He's right. But I mean, it's like, oh no, we're talking about 2 Florida inmates exchanging semen through a vent.
Such a beautiful, beautiful system we have.
With that, guys, happy Thanksgiving wherever you are in the world. We will see you Monday. Ted, happy travels. We
will be airing some classic TMI show. We've been around just long enough to already have classic TMI show stuff. So our awesome producer is going to run those. So if you're missing us until Monday, that stuff will be here.
Yeah, we'll have clips and stuff up. So that'll do it for us. So thank you to our producer and our buddy Putinbot Gaming there for patrolling the chat. Go check out that channel as well if you guys are enjoying what you're seeing.
Oh, it'll be on YouTube, I'm being told. All the reruns, not on Rumble.
Oh, not on Rumble. Okay.
Rumble can't handle the tech side of it for some reason. So.
Oh, weird. Okay. So with that, if you are on YouTube, make sure you guys just hit the subscribe button there so we can get to our monetization hopes and goals and dreams. And we can make this like an actual thing and make a living from it. If you were on Rumble, we ask that you become a $5 a month subscriber so we can keep doing the show for you.
We ask for $50,000 a month, but we know we're not going to get that. So,
$5 will do.
Yeah.
$5 a month. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, if you find value in talking about inmates and semen in the vents, I mean, where else are you going to hear that?
Jism in prison.
Oh God, you're only going to get
spunk in the tank.
Ugh. Oh. 5 times a day, Ted. That boy sent the spunk in the saran wrap 5 times a day.
That guy is not working at the. He's not working in the shop like Steve McQueen in The Getaway.
No,
he's not.
That boy is pumping out the juice 5 times a day.
He should. He should get a prison job at a sperm bank
to send to his lady love, and boom.
If I were going to have a baby, it would be. It's like with the lady that I met through the vent. I mean,
your daughter.
Never mind match. Christian mingle, don't need it.
Toilet vents, air
shout out
vents.
to USA. Just gave us a USA 9857. Just gave us $50 donation through the locals on Rumble. Thank you so much.
Thank you, USA. We love you. Thank you for supporting our little show, our little startup. Greatly appreciate it.
He also has some USA. I don't know if he's a he or she or a they, but little advice there in the chat that you should pay mind to.
Thank you so much, USA. That was such a lovely, even though Ted doesn't appreciate Thanksgiving, a great Thanksgiving surprise. And one more thing.
I want everyone to enjoy the Thanksgiving. It's not my favorite holiday, but doesn't mean you shouldn't enjoy yours. So have a good time. I'm going to be in the Big Easy. I'm going to be in New Orleans with my son. He's never been there before. So come on, it's going to be awesome.
That'll be great.
By the way, I was really surprised. New Orleans is apparently a big Thanksgiving city. All the restaurants are like
food city.
Well, that's true. And definitely obviously going to a Cajun place for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Well, happy holidays, everybody. And one more thing, happy birthday to young Courtney West. She is 17 years old. And I remember seeing pictures of her. It's our producer's daughter. Where just a couple of years ago, I feel like, Ted, that's like that transformational age. Like she went from like this little girl in middle school to suddenly like this young woman. Like she's probably going to hate that I'm saying that because, you're at that awkward. You're like, oh my God, that lady on the TV is saying, happy birthday, Courtney. You're growing up to be a beautiful young woman. Take that. So, all right. With that, that's all we got. So we will see you back here on Monday. Hopefully, like I'm all better and Ted is all better by then.
Hopefully.
And
we should be on the mend.
I hope. I don't know. Can't promise because 2024 has been a crappy health year for me.
Yeah,
all year.
It was all going great until a few days ago, but it could have been a lot worse.
For me, it's been all year. All year has been a shitty health year. So I'm happy.
By the way, it's very freaky when you look on the X-ray. And there's 2 bones that go up into your wrist, and one's completely separated from your wrist. And you're like, does that just grow back by itself? I guess so.
Smushes back together. It's just
science.
It just smushes. It's science. It's smush.
It smushes. It's smushology.
That is, I'm sure there's a class on it when you're in medical school. We don't know, Ted. We didn't go there.
We'll get a professor of smushology to come on the show.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right, guys. Thank you so much. There we go. I've hit my limit. My voice is starting to crack. There we go.
Bye, guys.
There it is. Bye, guys. Have a wonderful holiday. See you guys on Monday.
Enjoy.
Adios, amigos.
Bye, Manila. Have a good holiday. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bye.